Hello, my name is Megan McKelvey, and I'm the Vice President of Customer Engagement at Brightfind, a specialized digital design and web development agency in Washington, D.C. And I have with me today Heidi Satter. Heidi's the Director of Web Services at ASTHO, the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials. Heidi, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thrilled to have you here today. Over the past few months, the coronavirus pandemic has caused global fear, uncertainty, and in many ways, just plain chaos. Yet throughout it all, the world has seen everyday heroes working relentlessly, putting others before themselves to help in any way they can. Yet, of course, we know these frontline workers can't do it alone. Behind the scenes are so many phenomenal associations that have been stepping up more than ever to ensure their constituents have the right resources, tools, communities, whatever they need to be successful to work on the front lines. Heidi, as you know, we asked you to join us today to share a bit about how your frontline organization, ASTHO, has been able to successfully serve its constituents during all this chaos while still working to improve your digital presence to ensure that you're well prepared for the future. So let's jump in. Let's talk a little bit about ASTHO. Who are you? Who do you serve? And what makes you a frontline organization?
So ASTHO, we're the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials. So that's ASTHO. We're a nonprofit and we represent the public health agencies in the US and the US territories, the freely associated states and the District of Columbia. Not only the state health officials in those, or health officials in those areas, but the more than 100,000 public health professionals that the agencies employ as well.
Wow. Prior to COVID, how were you helping these constituents? How did you work with them on a regular basis?
All the different state health agencies and agencies that support public health have very large portfolios of work, and a lot of the work that ASTHO does is help support the work that they do by providing capacity building and technical assistance when needed, and helping them identify emerging trends in the area and we just work with them on the priorities that the states have for specific topic areas. A good example, I'm sure people have heard over maybe the last year or so, besides the coronavirus pandemic, is things like the opioid crisis and some of the issues that were sort of coming out around vaping. And so those are kind of the areas that we hop in and help. And we also go really in the policy area and really advocate for the types of resources and policies that the states and the territories need just to improve public health in general.
Since the pandemic, how have things at your constituents' offices changed? How has the pandemic affected these public health agencies?
Well,
how hasn't it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the regular general portfolios of work that they focus on, those needs are still very much there, and they're still working hard on those portfolios as well. So the states and territories can get pretty maxed out, and they're trying to still move along the regular work that they do on an everyday basis to support public health. I mean, the flu vaccine might be a good example, and making sure that public health and the public is able to get access to flu vaccines and any sort of changes that happen with that. That's something that happens every year, and it's on a specific timeline. So that type of work cannot stop.
Yeah, I can imagine. How have your constituents relied on the ASTHO website, in particular during the pandemic, to get the resources that they need from you all?
They get to the website a lot, and they look for a lot of resources that help support their work. And are you talking specifically about COVID or just in general here?
Both.
Okay, for the COVID response, we really wanted to make it very easy for them to get onto a specific area of our site to look up any of the information that they want regarding COVID. So ASTHO has really been very busy producing a lot of different COVID resources and support capacity building materials to help the states along the way as new information comes out about COVID, and recommendations, and also just lessons learned from other there's a lot of collaboration that happens behind the scenes. So we try to make sure that the information gathered from that is shared, and a lot of moving parts to this.
And I know throughout that, it hasn't always been easy. I know there's been some pain points for your constituents as they get on the website and try to do what they want to do. Your constituents are in a hurry, they're busy, they need to do a lot of things very quickly. Would you mind sharing what some of the pain points on your current website are? What have some of those challenges been?
It's our site, we recognize our site's very old, first of all, built on technology from quite some time ago. So we reckon there's challenges to that right off the bat. And there's definitely a look and feel to the site that lets you know that it's on the older side. And just utilizing old technology has its own challenges. Development costs tend to be higher. There's less people that are familiar with the development aspects of that type of technology. So that can come with some challenges. There was a lot of different things that we needed to do to approach this particular basically rehaul of everything we had to make sure we give our users the best experience that they can get on our site. We want them to be able to get in, get what they need, support them in a way that they need, and be able to just get to the work. You know, we don't want them to waste their time on finding things. We want them to get to what they need to and be able to get to the work so we're safer.
Yeah, that user experience is so key for that. And I know some of those technology challenges have been hard for your staff as well. It's not just challenging for the end users, but it's tough for staff to get things out quickly when they have so many demands put upon them. You know, as we think about demands, in addition to all the work you're trying to do to keep up with your constituents and what they need during the pandemic, like many around the world, your staff are adjusting to working from home. Many are doing so while they're trying to take care of their kids, while they're trying to homeschool. Gosh, you and one of your team members have even taken on a move. You've literally moved your entire house. How have you guys been able to be so successful in serving your constituents during a time that's just so challenging for staff, both professionally and personally?
There's no good answer to this other than honestly, you have to have an element of flexibility in what you do and a bit of understanding that we're all in this together. Everyone's experiencing, even though the challenges may be different, we're all experiencing definite shifts in our lives. And so there needs to be a bit of understanding about the challenges that other people are going through, and a bit of flexibility, and really just having good partners and having an organization that helps support those needs and a partner that helps support those needs and changes, I think just will make everything so much smoother. And ASTHO has been incredible in that way, really understanding that it's important to build some resilience into your workday and into just your culture to make sure that the staff gets what it needs so that we can really kind of perform our best.
Yeah, I think what you said, we're all in this together, is so key, so important. And I know ASTHO has been phenomenal in supporting its staff. As you guys go through all of these changes, it makes your professional life so much easier when you have a little peace in your personal life, which is obviously so important. Not only have you accomplished so much supporting your constituents, you have decided to tackle a major digital project. You've decided to do a complete overhaul of the site's design. You've also decided to acquire a completely new content management system. What originally compelled you to start thinking about redesigning and re-platforming the ASTHO website, even before COVID?
Even before I started at ASTHO, when I came in for the interview, I knew instantly that was going to be, I suspected very strongly, I shouldn't say knew, that it was going to be a high priority.
You hoped, right?
Yes, if I was given the job. That's true, if I hoped. It became really evident once I got the position and I came in, how very excited everybody was to have someone in my position, knowing that was going to go in that direction. And there was definitely some, just looking at the site, you could tell the lack of responsiveness. It's not really mobile friendly. And then just sort of the business needs of the organization as a whole. ASTHO's grown, and the we've changed and expanded, and the needs that we have as an organization aren't really being met by the site. Not just platform, but just the sort of the whole piece of it. So we're finding, you know, with the older platform, there's some functional needs that we can't really fill. And if we did, it would be more costly than it's worth. So you start balancing reviewing all that and balancing like cost efficiencies. And it was a pretty easy decision that we would need to make the change.
So you did actually make the decision to do so prior to COVID starting. So you could have simply said, once the pandemic hit, you could have very understandably, and no one could have argued with you, to say, you know what, we know we need this, we've demonstrated need, but we got to put it on hold. We have so many things going on right now. But you didn't. You decided to march forward despite everything you have going on. What made you decide to go forward with the project instead of just pressing the pause button?
Well, for me, I've been here, I think around 3 years or so at this point, and it's been very evident to me that the needs in public health, it never stops. There's always something new or a shift or a new emerging trend or focus that you need to put your sort of efforts on. So it didn't make sense for us to stop, because it was even more evident that as these shifts and things happen, we need to be able to move with that. And one of the big platforms that people go to look for information and get support for their work is a website. And just that's the new age, right? So we don't go to the library anymore. Well, yes, we do, but it's very easy to get the information that you need on the internet. So we need to be part of that, and we need to be able to support our members in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the new goals for your website?
Oh, there's so many. A big primary goal is to be really good support for our stakeholders and give them a really good, intuitive way, user-friendly approach, so that they can go in, they can find what they need very easily and quickly. And another change that's happened, especially now that COVID has really brought ASTHO into the light for more than, has given us a broader audience than we used to have as well. So thinking in that way, people are more aware of what public health is and what it does at this point.
Absolutely.
So really trying to increase the awareness and really speak to a broader audience about ASTHO, our work, how we make an impact, and telling our story in a user-friendly way. And breaking down silos has been a really big, I think that's probably, you would say that in pretty much any organization or corporation that you work for, that's a challenge, continuous challenge. So we want to make sure that we approach all of our work in a one ASTHO way, which has become a phrase for us, and really think it through so that it's intertwined, right? Everything public health is intertwined. So it makes sense that you would think about it in that way and share that information that way.
Yeah, so many of our clients struggle with those divisional silos, and they often drive information architecture on the site. Clients also often use that internal structure to figure out their navigation, and that doesn't always work for the end users. And this redesign is so important because, like you said, your end users a couple months ago are different than your end users now. Even those people that were the same have different needs. They're more emergent, for sure, urgent, but also just these new audiences, making sure that you've got really clean, sensible user interface elements is just so important for you all right now. So we are collectively, you, Brightfind, we are about halfway through the project, which is pretty exciting. So certainly not live yet, but we're at the point where you are seeing your information architecture come to life. You're seeing your designs come to life. You're starting to see the UI elements that are going to be a part of the page, and it's pretty exciting. How are you starting to realize some of those strategic goals? How are you seeing your goals come to fruition based on where you are in the project right now?
I think the biggest piece that I will try not to geek out too much on with you is really aligning. I love the information architecture aspect of it all, and structure and organization, but with a little bit of flexibility, because you know that organizations and goals change, and there has to be some flexibility built into your structure to make sure you can sort of ebb and flow with the needs of the organization. So seeing the work that the org's doing around aligning and breaking down silos, and then seeing that come to fruition on the website, although we can't see it physically yet because we're still in the middle of building everything, I can start seeing it in the structural sense, and it's very exciting for me to see that actually come to fruition.
Yeah. I think one of my most favorite parts of this is, I mean, there's no doubt ASTHO has the content and the resources to back you up as an organization. You have phenomenal brain power behind that content you're putting out. But what I'm so excited about is now seeing this visual appeal, that just that look and feel that gives you the trust and the credibility, just those visual aesthetics that are coming together just make you look like such the sharp, forward-thinking organization that you really are. It's nice to see that come to life. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see that design go live because it looks phenomenal. Yes, we all are. So over the past couple months, as you know, we work with a ton of associations, and over the past couple months, so many of our clients are wading through budget challenges, staffing challenges, other resource challenges since the pandemic hit. What would you say to other organizations who are debating whether they should move forward with their web projects or whether they should just put it on hold?
I personally feel, especially in this atmosphere, where there's been such a shift with organizations now working from home, there's a lot of companies and orgs realizing for the first time that that's actually a feasible way of working, right? So having the fact that you can't share that information in person anymore, and there's even more of a push digitally, it makes sense to me that if you have a new website redesign or rethinking on your brain at all, it makes sense to me in the current environment that you should move forward in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be necessarily in the way that we're going, where it's like a full overhaul, but there are ways you can work. If you get the right partner, you can really work on finding different bits and pieces and moving forward, maybe at a slower pace than you might even want to. But there are ways you can sort of bite off different pieces of it and move forward and get successes along the way. And it might not feel as scary for an organization to go in that approach, financially and otherwise.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned taking bite-sized pieces. You know, it doesn't have to be an overhaul, but it doesn't have to be giant. It can be small things like looking at the analytics in new and more strategic ways. You know, it's so important to be able to recognize your users' behavior, because I think the constituents on the other end of all of our associations, their constituents are changing, their needs are changing, their patience level is changing, their temperament's changing, you name it. So I think, you know, being able to keep your finger on the pulse as you look at your analytics and see what behaviors are happening, you know, even just taking a look at that and making small incremental changes, A/B testing. So those are some great things to push forward if you can't tackle a full redesign. And I know, ASTHO, you guys are really preparing yourself for the future well with that as also. You'll have a nice solid analytics in place so that you can really make decisions, so that once you're done with this redesign, you're not stopping either. At that point, you'll be able to really extend the life of your investment by constantly watching what your users are doing and adapting to those behaviors.
That's really how it should be, right? I mean,
it is.
that's
absolutely
going to be the only way that you're going to know how to continually sort of portray your message in a way that's going to resonate with your audience, is if you continuously make improvements. So
right. And we talk about continuous improvement all the time as we try to get associations out of that habit of saving up for a big giant redesign and then sitting back and going, phew, glad that's over, and waiting a couple years, 3-5 years, and starting all over again. It's so much better to have this brand new, beautiful, fresh website and then continuously monitor, continuously enhance. I absolutely agree. So obviously a lot has changed since March, when you made the decision to say, yes, we are going to keep pressing forward. Forget this pandemic for a moment. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. If you could go back and share any advice with your former self, your pre-COVID self, what would you share?
Other than start everything earlier than you ever think you should, which I think probably any person that's done any sort of redesign would give themselves that advice, even if they do multiple ones. But
I agree.
Celebrate the small wins too. It's always overwhelming to do something of this magnitude, and you could get lost in that and in the details and get discouraged along the way. So I would tell myself, like, bite off the different pieces, celebrate all the different milestones that you make along the way, and remind yourself that it's a process and it's okay if everything doesn't go according to that lovely list of things that you think should happen perfectly the first time around. You got to be a little bit flexible, or
maybe a lot flexible in these times.
A lot flexible if you're in COVID world right now.
Exactly. Such good advice. Heidi, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I recognize the irony of today's chat is that we're talking about how busy and crazy and overwhelmed everyone is right now, yet we asked you to do one more thing and sit down and chat with us today. So we wanted to sincerely thank you. We're so appreciative of the fact that you took time to share your thoughts. I know it will inspire other associations to continue enhancing their websites during these challenging times. For more information on Brightfind and to see what other association heroes are doing, please feel free to visit brightfind.com. Thank you so much.